Tariff, love him or hate him, Donald Trump is back in the US presidency and his self-proclaimed favorite word is tariff. So I'm sure you've heard of the news cycle and may be thinking, what the heck is a tariff? Why has he come out swinging with this word? And why is he tariffing every country that moves? In today's video, we are going to go through what a tariff is, why they're used, the reason Donald Trump is using them, and some of the arguments against tariffs to ensure that you understand what the heck is happening with this word tariff. So for starters, what is a tariff? A tariff is basically a tax imposed by a country onto another country for the import of their goods or services. So why are tariffs typically used? Tariffs are used by a country to artificially increase the price of imports from other countries to stimulate their own domestic production of goods and services. So that's what tariffs are, and that's why they're typically used. But in this scenario, why has Donald Trump come out swinging so hard with the use of tariffs? I'm going to go through these points. Number one is trade deficits, and I want you to think about the following scenario. Let's say you've got a mate, and with that mate you regularly go to dinner, right? You go to dinner costs you 110 bucks between you guys. They never pay, and you always end up paying the dinner bill, and it's $110 every time. But you know what they do say? Don't worry about it, you got dinner, I'll get you coffee. And then you go out for coffee, and coffee is only $10. And this goes on for a matter of weeks, months, and all of a sudden you realize, dude, I'm paying 110 bucks for dinner every time I see you, and you're only recovering 10 bucks for some coffees. You're not gonna like that over the long time horizon. And that's how Donald Trump feels about the US and its general trading partners. The US is in a trade deficit of $1.1 trillion with all other trading partners. So Donald Trump feels the US is not getting the best deal when it comes to the trade, and it feels like, hey, I'm the guy going out and paying you $110 meal, and then you're only giving me $10 back. We need to get back to the negotiating table, or I need to raise revenue from you in order to help me recover some of my costs. And that brings us to the point of negotiations. And what better person to talk about the negotiations than the same bloke who wrote The Art of the Deal and who loves a good negotiation, but Donald J. Trump. Love it or hate it, Donald Trump is using tariffs as a trade negotiation tactic. And it goes like this, as we've actually seen with Canada, Mexico, and China. Trump will come out, impose a tariff on a country and say, hey, we're putting a 10, 15, 20, 25% tariff, whatever it is. Then what will happen is the other country will come back and say, hey mate, you've imposed this tariff on me. What the heck's going on? Let's get to the table and negotiate. And like we've seen in Canada, Trump imposed a tariff. What happened the very next day? The tariff got paused because Trump got Justin Trudeau to the negotiating table, and they were able to negotiate a deal about a problem that Trump was not happy about, being the fentanyl that was coming in from Canada to the US. Just for a fact here, fentanyl kills almost 100,000 US citizens per year, so it's a topic that Trump wanted to attack, and he wanted to make sure that he's protecting the border from Canada to the US, so he dumped the tariff, brought Trudeau to the table, and the very next day, Canada will spend $1.3 billion on a plan to reinforce its borders with new helicopters, technology, and personnel, as well as additional resources to stop the trafficking of fentanyl. Now, the third and main use of tariffs, which is probably why Donald Trump is considering them, is that tariffs at their core, like we discussed earlier, is designed to bring domestic job creation and industry back to a country. Now, this is actually against Adam Smith, the Wealth of Nations, one of the best economists probably of all time. This is against free trade, and so there's a lot of backlash on the use of tariffs, but one thing we do know is that it definitely can help you bring jobs back into your domestic market and make goods in the country that you want to. Finally, one of the lesser known reasons to impose tariffs is to collect taxes externally as opposed to collecting taxes internally. If you remember, Donald Trump ran on the idea of reducing taxes for the American citizens. So you need to replace that tax dollars. And how are you going to replace those tax dollars? Well, let me give you a bit of a history lesson. Since about the 1800s all the way up to the Second World War, America actually used to collect 40 to 90% of its taxes outside of taxing its own citizens with an income tax, and taxing using tariffs and collecting money from foreign entities. So when you impose tariffs, it's a tax on someone else, and so you can actually lower the tax rate of your internal system, and instead of the IRS, you can have the ERS, or the external revenue generating system. So they're all the reasons that Donald Trump is looking to enforce tariffs, but what are the downsides and what are the negatives that tariffs can actually have? Let's go through them right now. Number one, the biggest argument against tariffs is that they can be inflationary. And the reason for that is if you're artificially increasing the prices of imports, well, guess what's gonna happen? The simple economics is the prices of the goods are gonna go up and the people or the consumers are gonna pay inflated prices. The second big problem in the medium to long term with tariffs is that it reduces domestic innovation. And the reason for that is if my domestic industry have an advantage because I've artificially put tariffs on other countries, they're gonna get complacent. Why are they gonna get complacent? Because competition is the thing that drives innovation. And if I've artificially stifled foreign competition, well, guess what? My domestic industry is going to do that thing within human nature where they're going to get lazy and they're going to go into preservation mode and they're going to stop or slow down their innovation. And we've seen that many times in the past when tariffs have been implemented. The third potential problem when you implement tariffs is a trade war. Now, a trade war is basically when one country implements a tariff, the other country retaliates, and it goes back and forth in a tit-for-tat fashion. And who loses out? The consumer and the business who's just trying to run their business, provide themselves with a good living, and they're caught in between these two countries going back and forth with the trade war where prices are going up and down and there's no consistency in your approach and you can't plan for medium or long-term outlooks because of this trade war that's going on over your head. Now, one of the final risks when you implement tariffs is that countries are just gonna get over you and go look to produce their goods or services elsewhere and trade with other countries. So in this video, we've covered what the heck tariffs are, why Donald Trump is using them all of a sudden, and what are the negative things that can come about. So the next time you read about tariffs, you'll be able to share all this information with you and all of your friends. If you have any comments or strong feelings about the tariffs that are going on, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Give us a like, give us a share, and if you're getting value, subscribe for more content just like this.